Hello, in the last video we had a look at the student's stats together with a couple of his hands to get a first impression on whether he is beating or not beating 25 NL Zoom, and we already saw that he has a certain way of playing while doing a downswing. Today we will have a look at a couple of more hands in which he clearly punted to then conclude whether these punts mean that he is not beating 25 NL Zoom, especially during a downswing. And overall I'll give you a rough idea about how Zoom poker works and who should be playing them and who shouldn't. What you should be aware is that those type of downswings that you see in the end of the grab happen frequently in Zoom poker because Zoom poker is a game where win rates are low. So of course it is still possible to beat 25 NL Zoom for 5, 6, 7 big blinds per 100 pre-rake back, but if you beat these games for this type of win rate, you're not playing them. You're playing 100 NL Zoom, you're playing 200 NL regular tables. So most of you who become regulars at Zoom tables, you're working with very small win rates and relying on rakeback as well. Therefore, you will frequently see these kind of downswings. This student here is playing 872 hands per hour, which means 4 tables of Zoom, and we need to keep this in mind because of course the more tables and hands you play per hour, the lower your win rate. Now let's have a look at the first hand. We hold pocket 8s on the cutoff and the under the gun player opens. We 3-bet and face a 4-bet. Now the question is what to do against the 4-bet here. Theoretically speaking, you should continue these lower pocket pairs, but it is close in EV. I'll show you in a bit. We decided to call here, and the board is 6-9 queen with the flush draw. Our opponent decides to c-bet here for roughly 1/3, which is okay. Any c-bet size, to be honest, 10, 25, 1/3, 50% could work on this board. What you should be aware that despite this board not looking that fabulous for the 4-bet at first glance, in these tight positions in 4-bet pots you can really c-bet very frequently, even out of position. So if he has a range c-bet strategy, that's not going to be a problem here. Now, what do we do against such a c-bet? We should be aware that we have the 8 of spades, which increases the value of our pocket 8 slightly, so we need to continue. However, look what our student here does. He finds the shove with his 8-8, and this is not okay. This is losing EV. Your opponent has an easy defense here. He'll continue his stronger made hands together with his flush draws. And this is a league I see frequently happening in 3-bet and 4-bet pots where people shove hands that they feel are ahead of some of your opponent's hands. So he could be c-betting ace-king, ace-jack, and you kind of afraid what you're going to do if you face another small c-bet on the turn. So you just shove thinking you could be ahead of something, you could get calls by hands where you're alive, and you need to be paying attention. So 3-bet and 4-bet pots, regardless the hand you have, so even if you have a flush draw, there is not as frequent of just shoving on the flop as a raise. There are smaller raises. Instead of just getting impatient and thinking, oh, I could be ahead of this or behind of that and he could fold this or that, think about what your strategy on the flop is, what are the sizes you learned, what are the frequencies you learn, and try to always rationalize things and don't play in a certain way because you kind of are targeting a few hands and your emotions are getting in the way, especially during the downswing, which is what happened here with the student. I'm quite convinced he wouldn't have done this play if he weren't in a downswing. Here you can see the lost EV on GTO Wizard in this situation. With the 8 of spade you lose about 4 big blinds, so this is not something that can happen. You should know that we don't have an all-in strategy here on this flop with pocket 8s. So if you feel like you're emotionally a bit unstable during the downswing and tend to have these impatient plays on the flop, it's better to just fold it pre-flop. You see here that facing the 4-bet with the 8s, your call is, according to GTO frequencies, mandatory, but overall in EV it doesn't gain you much. And it is true that your opponent's 4-bet size was a bit smaller here in this situation. What is interesting against regulars 4-bet sizings, there are a few tells. So when you see the showdown, if it's an opponent you frequently face, take a note on his 4-bet size, especially in early positions. You will see them use slightly different sizes with a few different hands. In this case he had the top set, pocket queens, and won the hand. Now to our next hand. We are in the cutoff, holding pocket 7s, under the gun opens, the hijack cold calls. What should we do with pocket 7s? You don't need a 3-bet or fold strategy only. You can cold call behind with pocket 7s here, which we did. The button folds and now we face the raise from the small blind. The first two positions fold and we have to decide what to do here against this. It is the type of situation where we don't have much EV. We could fold, we could call, but instead we shove. Why did my student shove here? He's doing a downswing. He sees the large raise from the small blind against 3 people with a lot of dead money and thinks, okay, he could be wide here trying to steal the dead money. I'm going to shove. Then I asked him, do you know anything about this regular? What are the stats? We had a look at the stats and we saw that it is not a particularly aggressive regular, also pre-flop, not too wide, not 3-betting too much. So in this case, could he really have shoved pocket sevens? Let's have a look at GTO Wizard. According to this pre-flop only sim, where you can also do sims with a few cold calls and then facing the raise from the small blind, we lose about 4 big blinds if we shove pocket sevens here. It's true that in real life the ranges will be slightly different than here. Still, you need crazy assumptions about your opponent to feel like this is going to be a profitable shove. So sizings were a bit different than here in this sim. The range is a bit different. I admit I don't know the stat after the second cold caller shoves against the small blind's raise, whether population there is folding or calling too much, but I find it hard to believe that the deviation is great enough to justify this shove. He should have just folded this hand. And in my opinion, this shove happened for the same reason as the previous one. He clearly was frustrated. He thought he was going to play pocket 7, which is nice and multi-way against a recreational player. Then he saw the raise together with other people folding, and he clearly could see something that he would beat if he shoved. Plus, when called, sometimes he has good equity, so if the opponent calls ace king, for example. And this frustration in the downswing led to this type of hand, which he didn't do during the upswing. Now, what is the conclusion? Is this student still beating 25 in Zoom pre-rake back? I saw the hands while he was winning. I also know him a little bit better, so I know he does beat the game pre-rake back when he's playing well. These were about the worst punts I saw in terms of EV mistakes. He is solid enough, but it was clear to see that during downswings he's playing differently. His emotions are controlling the way he's playing. So it is okay to feel frustrated, to feel sad, but it is not okay to play differently because of this, and this I saw too frequently. Now in Zoom, where you in a good scenario have 1-2 big blinds pre-rake back, when you play 4 tables, many hands per hour, these small punts, these small deviations in the way you're playing are enough to make the win rate go down below 0. So with the rake back probably still winning there, but pre-rake back I doubt it. The best players with the highest win rates are not necessarily the strongest player, technically speaking. You do need solid knowledge of game theory, you need knowledge on how population is playing, but once you're good there, you'll probably have a higher win rate than someone who's very good if you don't have these punts, if the downswings don't affect the way you play. So someone who has a major punt every 2000 hands or so, he will have a lower win rate than someone who plays consistently, even if his theoretical level is lower. So performance, top performance is key for you to be the most profitable player. So who should be playing Zoom? In Zoom you have low win rates, so these type of downswings happen more frequently. So Zoom should be played by players who want to challenge themselves to maintain consistent performance. So if your focus is really on, I want to be the best performer possible, Zoom could be a challenge. It is okay for you to play due to the high amount of hands if you only have a 30-20 minute session until you open all those regular tables. For short session, Zoom makes a lot of sense. If you want to gain a large sample quickly to analyze your game, Zoom makes sense. If you really have good rake back and you really just want to play very, very high volume without having to worry about other things, it could be good if you're an above average player, so you need to be good regular. Then for high volume players, Zoom can make sense. But if you're just an average regular, it is possible that you're beating the game pre-rake back if you have a good performance, but during those downswings you're actually losing at these stakes, at least pre-rake back. So overall you despite having the skill to beat the game, aren't beating the game. So if you aren't a very strong regular player, or if you really aren't playing Zoom as a challenge for some reason, I'd recommend you to play regular tables, because given the skill advantage, you have a higher win rate there. You are less times during a downswing, so not only will your win rate be higher because you have the skill advantage, but because your performance on average will be better due to less frequently being in a downswing. And table selection, game selection is one of the most underrated skills there is for becoming a profitable player. If this reflection helped you, please like the video, subscribe the channel, and check out the descriptions to contact me for coaching. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.